I think that if ever I needed an example of how widely divergent my moral compass can be from most fundamentalist Christians, then the most recent Jesus Freak 777 video does a more than adequate job. Put a link up in the sidebar. Now, in terms of outlook on life, what we want out of life, I think it's safe to say that Jesus Freak 777 and I have very little overlap. He likes guns. I think they're horrible. He's a conservative. I'm what he would class as a liberal. He believes in the God of the Christian Bible. I don't. He believes the Bible is literally true. I think it's a load of silly nonsense that is often quite dangerous when it's applied by people who can't separate fiction from reality. He's a sports fan, and I have no interest in sports. He likes metal music. I like ABBA, Lady Gaga. He likes a low-calorie fruit parfait. I'd rather have a pie. So you get the picture. Not much overlap. One thing that I did always think we shared, though, was a strong sense of right and wrong. We might disagree on what is right and wrong, usually because my view is rooted in secular humanism and his in whatever's written in the Bible. But I felt we both had a strong sense of how to tell the two apart. And now it seems that we don't even share that. Our sense of right and wrong couldn't be more different. In the video about Venom Fax's furlough from YouTube, and let's be clear about this, he hasn't left. He'll be back, even if it does take more than the 3 days that I'm sure would feed his Messiah complex. In that video, Anthony describes Sean, and I quote, as a fine young man. And I was really surprised at that. There have been allegations about Sean's behaviour and evidence to substantiate those allegations that show he is anything but a fine young man. Some of the allegations are quite serious, and I'm not going to repeat these here because I personally haven't seen the evidence to back them up. However, what I have seen evidence for is the false DMCA flagging, not least of which evidence is, of course, Sean's own admission. Sean has previously fallen foul of this when he filed a fraudulent DMCA against Thunderfoot. And Sean's not particularly believable defence at the time was that he was unaware that what he'd done was wrong, and he offered an insincere apology on YouTube. If we give him the benefit of the doubt, this could be chalked up to a mistake, although when you learn some of the background, that's really being generous. But then he comes back and he pulls the same stunt all over again. So this time, he is fully aware that what he's doing is wrong. He comes up with the same cock and bull story about wanting to protect his privacy and his family. And then he caps it off by posting a link to a video that accuses another YouTube user of being a paedophile, even though Sean knows this is untrue. So, Anthony, is this really what you consider to be a fine young man? Would you really use this kind of behaviour as role model material for your son? Would you feel okay if someone did this to you, accused you of being a child predator when they knew that it was untrue? Because this would be an accusation of a heinous crime, potentially having very serious consequences for you and your family. Your Bible has a set of commandments, one of which is, thou shalt not bear false witness. And that's not just lying, as it's often interpreted, it's bearing false witness. And Sean has broken this commandment willfully in filing false DMCAs. He may have apologised, but that doesn't mean, as you argue, that right prevailed. Far from it. Sean apologised not because he acknowledges truly any wrongdoing on his part, but for the same reason that a thief might apologise when they're caught. Because he was caught. His apology is worthless because he doesn't mean it, as is made pretty obvious by the poisonous and untrue allegations that he's made labelling another YouTube user as a criminal. And this is another example of his willfully breaking that same commandment. Bearing false witness against another person, not to defend himself, which might under some circumstances be understandable, but simply to harm them. Is that really the behaviour of someone who is a fine young man? Now, I know that I often sound like a stuck record trotting out the phrase cherry-picking, but are you now disregarding the Ten Commandments? I mean, surely they are part of the foundation of your religion. Or is your Bible really that open to interpretation? And if it is, then how on earth do you know what a single word of it actually means? How can you call it truth when it can mean whatever you want it to at any particular moment? When your interpretation of the Bible's commandments is so flexible that you use the phrase, "a fine young man," to describe someone who broadcasts an odious accusation, knowing it to be untrue, with the sole purpose of attempting to ruin someone else's name and potentially their life. If you can do that, how can your Bible even tell you right from wrong at all?